a lot of people do CrossFit and HIIT. Is that an effective way to train for mountaineering? Hello YouTube, my name is Max Lauer. I'm an author, online coach and UK mountain leader. I have a real interest and passion for helping people get into the mountains and improve their physical and mental health. A few weeks ago, I met up with my friend Chase, a fellow YouTuber and coach who spent the last 10 years helping condition people to get ready for the mountain environment. In this video, we're going to dive deep into what it takes to get yourself fit and strong for the mountains. Because believe it or not, if you want to have a long hiking and walking career, you want to make sure you're as strong and fit as possible so you're not debilitated by knee injuries, back injuries that plague hikers. As always, if you like the video, hit subscribe, hit like, and make sure you check out the video that we made on Chase's channel all about hiking and nutrition. All right, so I'm here with my friend Chase here in the Spanish Pyrenees, Catalonia. We've just recorded a video on Chase's YouTube, so go check that out. But today I'm going to be asking Chase some questions about mountaineering, fitness, strength and conditioning, because that is what his speciality is. A lot of people know about endurance and really focus on getting lots of running in and focusing on that endurance base for mountaineering. Yeah. But a lot of people forget about strength training. In your opinion, as a coach with lots of experience with this, how important is the strength side of things?
I'm pretty biased when it comes to this because I specialise as a strength and conditioning coach in mountaineering, and there's not too many of me. I've been a proponent of building strength for the mountains for as long as I've been around doing this, so like 7 or 8 years, and I think it's hugely important. I think it's hugely underrated as well. Like obviously you need to be cardiovascularly fit, you need to have an aerobic base, you don't want to be wheezing and panting your way up the mountain, but you can wheeze and pant your way up the mountain, you can still make it and you can get back down. But if you have muscle imbalances that result in you having severe knee pain or hip pain or pain in your ankles or instability, then you're opening up yourself to have an injury. And if you have an injury in the mountains, it's very difficult to get out. So I've always gone with this idea of strength first. Make sure your joints are moving properly and functioning well, and you're not so open to the chance of getting an injury. Once you've got that basis, then work on the endurance and the performance aspect, which often comes down to the aerobic kind of fitness. Yeah,
definitely, because people don't realize that if you're doing a multi-day hike, you're carrying 10, 15 kilograms on your back.
Yeah.
Like, you need to be strong to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, not just the lower body as well, like smaller muscles, so the supportive muscles in your back that do a lot of the pack carrying, whether you realize it or not, are often the muscles that aren't trained in like a traditional strength and conditioning program. So that's the kind of stuff that I try and hit on in my training, like really specific for pack carrying in particular, and just enjoying what you're doing as well. Like you can go for a hike and you can suffer through the whole thing, but most people don't want that as an experience on the weekend. It's much more enjoyable when you are prepared, when you've done a little bit of work.
So now that we've established that strength training is really important, how can you get as strong as possible but stay as light as possible, which is also very important for mountaineering?
Yeah, you don't want to be too heavy. The straight answer is you want to work maximum effort strength. That takes a little bit of experience. So if you're new to gym training or bodyweight training, take this with a grain of salt. But you essentially want to be working on maxing out that exercise with 3 to 6 reps. So in other words, you can't complete the 7th rep. And that way we're training maximal effort strength. We're going to be building the strength within the muscle, but not necessarily the size and not necessarily the weight of the muscle. And that's what we call hypertrophy, and that's typically 8 to 12 reps. That's what your average kind of gym bro would be doing to gain muscle in a standard strength and conditioning program. So yeah, lowering the reps and increasing the intensity and the weight will get you stronger.
But definitely you want to make sure that you have a base before you start doing maximal strength stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
That's when it can get a bit dangerous, particularly deadlifts and squats. Like you wouldn't want to start going for 2 rep, 3 rep maxes if you didn't have that base.
No, we don't want to take a beginner and load up the barbell and ask someone to do a 3 RM squat.
If you were training for Kilimanjaro, for example, Kilimanjaro is a very popular one. How long do you need to train, to actually achieve it, and so it's effortless and you're in the peak condition?
Kilimanjaro is never going to be effortless. There's a lot of effort involved. But I have a 3-month Kilimanjaro program, so that gives you a bit of an idea. But if you have gone from a base of absolutely nothing, like if you've done no exercise for the last 10 years, it's going to take you a little longer than that. So on average, like 3 to 6 months, something like that.
Yeah. And I have kind of personal experience with this. I did an ultra marathon, having been doing sprinting before that. So I went from sprinting to a 68-kilometer mountain race. I did do it in 3 months, but my entire life was training. It was twice a day, 6 days a week for 3 months pretty much. So I'm flexible with my time, so that was possible. But if you are less flexible with your time, you need more than 3 months, I think.
Yeah, the shorter the window, the more intense that window is going to be, definitely.
A lot of people always ask me, what kind of experience do you need to be able to climb a mountain like Mont Blanc, which is, beginner high altitude mountain? Could someone that's never climbed a decent mountain do that?
There's an easy way up just about every mountain.
Yeah, the normal route.
So you can be a beginner and you can climb Mont Blanc. You can be a beginner and you can climb Mount Everest, but it just depends on how much support you have. So if you have 2 guides and a whole expedition team making sure that you're okay and that you're comfortable, of course you can do that. Whether that's recommended or not is a different question entirely. But Mont Blanc is a popular mountain for a reason. Like, it's a beautiful mountain. It is relatively accessible. So there's nothing wrong with doing that as a beginner, as long as you've got the support there to help you with that, because you're not going to go and do that as your first mountain just with you and a buddy, without a guide. So it's all around making kind of smart decisions and being a little bit more conservative, like erring on the safe side, until you're really confident and you know your skills and you know the mountains really well, and you know yourself really well, importantly as well.
Altitude is obviously a massive factor when it comes to high altitude mountains, and potentially it's not something that you can train for effectively if you're not in high altitude regions. Is there anything that you can do if you're in a city, living and working and hoping to climb a high altitude mountain?
There are things you can do. Specifically, there's one thing you can do. You can hire an altitude tent. So it's like a plastic tent that you put over your bed. It is completely airtight, and I think it pumps nitrogen into the atmosphere within that tent. So essentially you're breathing a lower percentage of oxygen. So overnight, when you're sleeping for 8 hours, you're essentially at a simulated high altitude environment. To my knowledge, that's the only way to do real altitude training, and that's what we call pre-acclimatization. And that's not done very often. It's only done for like high-flying CEO business people who don't have the time to acclimatize to like 8,000 meter mountains. So that is the option, but it's not realistic for most people. It's expensive, but it's the only thing that works. Other than flying to Denver or La Paz and staying there for 2 weeks and actually acclimatizing. In terms of the training aspects, there's a lot of gimmicks and there's a lot of pitfalls. The idea that you can train for altitude in some way, it's not happening, at least not yet.
A lot of people do CrossFit and HIIT. Is that an effective way to train for mountaineering?
There will be certain elements of both those two types of exercise that are effective. It's certainly not the most optimal thing for you to do. Like, if you are a die-hard CrossFitter and you also want to climb a mountain, then keep doing CrossFit. But if your main priority is climbing a mountain, I would say there's 2 things in particular that you need to focus on that CrossFit doesn't necessarily target. And that is, 1, training the muscles in the lower leg, because 30% of the muscles that we have in our entire body are in the foot and below the knee. And you look at a typical like strength and conditioning program or a CrossFit week or phase of training, and there's going to be calf raises in there at best, and like that's the most you're going to have for your lower body. So that's the one thing that's really important. The other thing is that both CrossFit and HIIT training are naturally very high intensity, and they're spiking, which doesn't lend itself very well to building an aerobic base. So that is your ability to consume oxygen, your ability to use fat as a fuel source to fuel your training, and that happens when you're in your aerobic zone. So if you want to learn more about your aerobic zone and how it works, I've got a blog post on my website that people can read. It's lengthy, it's very wordy and very sciencey, but it will clear that mist up a little bit.
We've talked a lot about physical preparation for the mountain. What can you do to train the mind? Because for anyone that's watching who hasn't done an endurance event or hasn't done a multi-day hike, most of it is in the mind. Your mind's going to give up before your body does. So how can you train that?
That's a big question, and it's probably the hardest thing to overcome, really. What I would say is that if you pick a goal that is a little bit too audacious, like if you decide that you want to do an ultra marathon in 3 months and you've never done an ultra marathon before, that is like this guy, then that's going to be a huge mental barrier for you to surmount. The easier thing to do is to start with something small, get a good win under your belt and feel confident about yourself from achieving that win.
Yeah.
And then go ahead and pick the next goal, and just select something that's just a little bit outside of your comfort zone, something that you know you could probably do, something that might hurt a little bit, something that is really going to demand more of you, something you have to train for, and you just kind of keep stepping up the bar a little bit. In terms of like keeping the mental focus and keeping mentally strong when I'm actually on the mountain, I'll break it down into small chunks and like small steps. So if I'm going up a really relentless uphill day for, 1,000, 2,000 meters of ascent, I'll break that down into little steps. I'll tell myself, okay, just do like 30 steps, just count 30 steps. So 1, 2, and I'll tell myself when I get to 30, I'm gonna have a rest. And most of the time I get to 30, I'm like, oh, this is fine, I can keep going. I have the rest if I really, really needed it, if I need that little mental break. But most of the time I'm happy to just kind of keep going. But I think the strategy there is breaking the big, scary, audacious goal down into small, manageable pieces.
Bite-sized chunks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One of my tactics, which I use during an event, if I'm finding it really difficult and I think I want to give up, I just think to myself, someone has done something 10 times harder than this.
Yeah.
This is nothing compared to what other people have been through. Thanks very much, Chase.
You're welcome.
It was a great conversation. Hopefully you guys have learned something from that. As always, go check out Chase's channel if you have any more questions. We're going to make some food now. It's the temperature's dropping here in Catalonia on 23rd of October. Beautiful autumnal colours out here at the moment though. But we're actually here to climb Pedraforca, which is an iconic Catalonian mountain. We're also going to make a video about that as well, so check that out.